card, so I'm not sure what that's all about, but I guess maybe this is the real card that reads, because you know we are here by the printer style USB plug where you connect it to the computer. So I'm not sure what's going on here, but I guess we'll have to see. Maybe this is just for the screen, but we're going to check that out. So if there's two readers, that's quite interesting. And we have a little fan here that cools off the motherboard and the electronics inside. So yeah, overall guys, a very interesting and quite feature-packed printer. So right off the bat, I'm really impressed with how it's put together and built. So let's go ahead and power it on, make sure everything works, and check out the UI. Okay, let's plug our cord in, and I'm going to switch the power on, and there we see a logo and the main screen. So we do have a little bit of a different menu here, and we'll take a closer look at it in a second. I'm going to go ahead and try to home this thing. So I'm going to click on menu, movement, and home, and there it goes. X, Y, and the Z is going down. So hopefully our bed is low enough, but actually the nozzle is to the side. So, okay, so it's fine, yep. All right, so all of our axes work. I'm gonna go ahead and preheat this thing. Click on the nozzle. I don't see a hot button, so I'm just gonna do it manually here. And the touchscreen is very responsive. I'll go to 220, 60 on the bed. So you guys can see here we have the nozzle, the bed. So the nozzle is at 161, the bed is at 41. And so you simply just click on them to adjust it. And the touchscreen is very responsive. So here we have the fan controls. This is the extruder, looks like. Actually, I guess that's the speed. It says flow rate FR. Then we have a menu here. Okay, so we did have a preheat button, I just didn't notice it. All right, let's check it out. So here we have the PLA, PTG, and ABS. Very cool. And this is where you can control it, toggling between the bed and the nozzle. And here's our fan. And then if we click that, that's gonna cool it down. By the way, if you guys notice, I'm touching the screen, but we also have this knob. So I guess the knob is for other things. That's interesting. So here we have movement. That's where we clicked home. We can move it in every direction. So we do have out of bed leveling. That's cool. So it does look like we might have some kind of touch sensor. And this is our manual bed leveling. So here it says terminal. I'm not sure what that is. Probably should not go here. Custom, I guess codes of some sort. And then we have settings. We have screen settings, machine settings. So here we can do a few things. Like change the color of our LED. And that actually works. I can see it changing. And we can also turn it off here. Shut down the machine. Parameters. So you can do a lot of adjustments to this machine. Very cool. So this thing is feature packed. So here are features. So here's some of the stuff we can turn on and off. And there's a bunch of more stuff. Wow, I'm very impressed with how much functions this thing has. It has all kinds of stuff in here. And this is when you can tell that the company that builds this printer builds the boards. They really know what they're doing there. So here we have an info button. This is everything, I guess, about the printer. Here we have disconnect. I don't think I want to push that. And this is some other control here. Very interesting. Very impressive, to say the least. All right, and so the nozzle and the bed are preheated. So the next thing we need to do is level our build plate. And so we're gonna go to menu, click on movement, and then leveling. So we will need a piece of paper to make a gap between the bed and the nozzle. So let's go ahead and click on our first point. So there's 4 points here. And so now all we gotta do is turn these knobs to loosen the bed until it gets closer to the nozzle. And also guys, don't forget that we have that little bolt in the back that we can tighten and loosen to get closer. So I might have to tighten it a little bit. I think I have too big of a gap between the nozzle and the bed right now. So if you guys remember, this bolt right here actually limits our switch here on the way down. So what I need to do is I need to tighten it down a little bit more. That way it homes a little closer to the bed. So I'm gonna raise it up just a little bit so I can get to the bolt. And I'm just gonna tighten it by hand. If you need to, you can use a wrench. So I think that should be good right there. So I'm gonna home it again. All right, so it homed, and yes, we definitely look much better. We're really close now. So I'm gonna tighten the bed a little bit more just in case. And by the way, guys, we are preheated, so that's the best way to level the bed. So let's go to leveling and click on our first point. And you guys can see it actually is now in the right place. I don't know what happened last time. I think I was not at home. You basically need to home it before you start leveling it. So yeah, I'm just gonna put a paper in between the nozzle and the bed until it starts dragging. So I can see a little bit of drag there. Let's go to 2. So 2 is actually on this side. There we go, we're dragging. Let's go to 3. So yeah, we're just going around all of the corners. All right, so that's good there. Let's go to 4. And so we need to do this multiple times. We need to go around at least 4 or 5 times and then also check the middle. And so the way you're going to check the middle is you're just going to manually push it that way. You adjust it in one corner, the other corner is going to move. So yeah, so it's all about just keep doing it until every corner feels right. Like this one is way too tight right now. And that's pretty good there. So yeah, this is my second pass and I'm gonna keep going about 3 more times or so. All right, so I went around like 6 times and I think I got it really close. So now I'm gonna go back again, and then click on this X here. And that's gonna let me move it around by hand. I'm gonna put my paper under there to make sure that I'm not gonna scratch anything. So yeah, it's way too tight. So our center is higher than our edges. So what we need to do is we need to tighten all the knobs the same amount. So usually that's what I do and it works pretty good. So I'm gonna go about a quarter here, a quarter here, and then a quarter in the back. And that looks like it's just about right. So yeah, I moved every knob a quarter and that was perfect. This should be close enough. And obviously the center is more important than the edges because most prints start there. So I'm gonna grab the little SIM card and I'm gonna go ahead and try to plug it here on the side where the screen is and see what happens. Okay, so it does say card inserted here in the front. That's a good sign. So let's go back and we'll click on print right here. I'm still confused what this knob is for, but I guess we'll figure it out. All right, so here it's asking if it's a U-disk or a SD card. So we're gonna click on SD, and there we can see it's reading some files. So we do have a folder that's called models. And if we click on that, we have a couple models we can print. So there's a Pokemon and a litter bear. So I think I will start with a bear. But before we do, we need to get some filament. So I'm gonna go ahead and try this white PLA. And the reason I'm interested in it, because it's got a really nice matte finish to it. Usually they're really shiny, the filaments, but this one's a nice matte. So the reason I don't really like these kind of coils is because they really get tangled easily. But we're gonna go ahead and try to use this one. All right, so I'm feeding from the top. So let's go through the filament detector first. And it does light up blue, and it is a mechanical one, I can hear it. So after the filament, we're gonna go through this extruder, and then I'm just gonna keep pushing it through until it gets to the hot end. So you guys, you can see the filament up there on the spool holder, going down into the extruder. So let's click on menu, extrude. Let's load some filament in. Let's say 5mm. Well, let's change it to 10. And there it goes. You can see it's purging. I'll do it one more time. So simple as that. We are ready to go. So now we can go ahead and go to print, SD card, models, and let's, I guess, choose the little bear. And there it goes. It started. So I'm hoping our level is good. So far it looks okay. And there it goes. So it started the print. So I think we might be a little close to the bed. Yeah, we are. Now the good part is we do have baby steps here. If we click on that, we can go up a little. So I'm gonna go 0.2 up, and that's definitely much better now. So yeah, you guys can see that we started and it's looking really good. So the printer is very silent. The only thing I can hear is fan, and it's mostly coming from the bottom because these fans here are not too loud. So yeah, overall it's just fan. And I'm gonna let you guys hear it here. Absolutely no stepper sound noise at all. It's ultra quiet. So as it's printing, let's go ahead and check out our menu here. So this is a different menu, obviously, as we're printing. So on the very top, we have the file name, and then the hot end temperature, the bed temperature, the fan speed, the amount of time that has passed, and also the progress bar in 1. So we got 1% and 3 minutes 52 seconds now. This is the layer height that it's on right now, and the speed. And on the very bottom, we have a pause, baby steps, which we just used, more, and stop. So let's click on more. So here we can see we can adjust the heat. And this is for the nozzle and the bed. You can toggle it here. So we also have fan controls, extruder controls, percentage. This is the speed of the printer. You can add or subtract. Here's obviously where we can use our knob. So our knob is useful whenever we're changing parameters. So that's what the knob is for. Baby steps is also here. So we can actually turn on and off features right here. I'm not going to mess with any of this stuff. So here we can also turn on our LED. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it to some color. Let's say white. That seems like a good one. And that's everything, and pretty much everything you would want. So yeah, the screen is very intuitive and quite attractive, and the layout. So yeah guys, looks like everything's okay and we're printing away. So this is going to be some kind of a litter bear, and we'll see how it turns out. And by the way, also there we can see the color of the LED. Actually, let me go ahead and change it to different. So we got red, green, blue, and white. Yep, so we do have quite a few colors. All right, so I printed both of the files and we're gonna get to them in a second. What I wanna quickly mention is that when I first started printing, I had an issue with the printer. So this was off camera and I was just trying to figure out what's going on. But what was happening is it would start the print, but the Z-axis wouldn't go up. And I just shot an email to Biqu and they responded, I think it was within 10 minutes or something. It was very quickly, and told me how to reset the whole thing, which is quite simple and what I wanna show you real quick. So we're gonna click on menu and then we're gonna click on terminal here. And so we're gonna get this little pad here, and so to reset it we're just going to click M502. We're going to click send, and so it does a few things there, and after that we're going to enter M500 and that's going to save it. And that's all you got to do, and that fixed my issue right away and it was back to normal. So yeah, I wanted to share that just in case you got this printer and you can't figure out what's going on. That's what you do to reset it. All right, so let's go ahead and look at these two models. This one I printed first, so let's take a closer look at this bear. I guess this is called a littering bear. I'm not sure what it is, but not the best print honestly to check out quality or anything. I don't know, it's just a generic print, I guess, nothing too exciting, and it is a little bit under extruded here. So printing this model, and then this one had no issues whatsoever with sticking to the bed, and this one just popped right off. Let's see how this other one does. And there it goes, it literally just pops right off. So it seems like this is kind of like ultra base, or at least it's acting kind of like it. Like when it heats up, it sticks really good. And then as it cools, it just pops right off. So far I'm really liking this texture here on this build platform. So let's take a closer look at this thing. So it turned out a little better than the bear because we have some smooth surfaces. For being such a small print, it did very well. So I can kind of still see layer lines for some reason. It's still overall a very, very solid print here. And I think we'd be able to judge things a lot better once we slice our own prints. So for the next print, I want to do a benchy in a dark color, and we'll be able to see a lot better what kind of print quality this printer produces. All right, and away it goes, and it's actually perfect. So the distance between the bed and the nozzle is just right. All right, so I went ahead and printed 3 useful things that we can look at here to really determine how this printer is. So let's check out the benchy first. And guys, to my surprise, I am very impressed with this print quality. And if you look at the reflections, it's amazing. Normally printers do not produce this kind of prints. It is very rare. Usually Creality printers can produce these kind of prints when they're tuned very well. But to be out of the box and this good is very impressive for this printer. You can see very minimal vibrations. Cooling is also great. So that dual fan cooling duct is really working. Just an excellent print. And you guys can see what our bottoms look like with that bed. Sort of like a bumpiness look to it. Pretty clean overall, but it's not like a glass. And also if we look here on the bottom, you can see that little gap. Now I think that gap is not supposed to be there. I've noticed that printers that are very accurate usually have that gap. So that gap was not intended, but every time I see a excellent print or very high quality print, I see that gap, which is kind of weird and interesting. So some people will say that's under extrusion, but to me it's an indicator of precision. So the benchy is highly impressive. Let's look at the calibration cube next. And by the way, that's how easy it popped off the bed. So as far as the bed's concerned, so far it's doing really well. Now it's not sticking as good as I thought it would. Kind of like if it was a rough sandy surface, but it's still sticking. But it does make me nervous that the models could pop off if, you know, the nozzle hits it in the wrong way. So it seems to work well so far and I haven't had any issues. Let's see the calibration cube. So this is gonna show us all the axes and how well they are. So this is the X. And you can see very minimal vibration and practically no ghosting. Pretty much perfect. Then we got the Y. A little bit more vibration. Very tiny amount of ghosting, so excellent. Now there's a little more vibration on the Y. It's probably because I do have the GoPro on there while I'm printing, and that's adding a little more weight, so that might have something to do with it. You can see the X is definitely cleaner. The top also looks great, and the bottom looks perfect. So yeah, super high quality prints here. Now for this last thing, this is actually a benchmark of an engine, and it was created by, I think, a YouTuber called Sunshine. So if you want to check him out, this is how I found out about this little benchmark he made, which basically is supposed to be a moving engine, where there's cylinders in here, and it prints all in one print with all these moving parts. Now I don't know how well mine did. There's some stuff here I think that's supposed to break away. I did have some stringing under there, so I haven't turned this yet to see if it's going to work. The print quality itself is just astounding. And check out this flywheel here. That's very nice detail. So this is the front of the engine, and we get a little crank here on the other side that we should be able to crank with. So yeah, there's supports inside that are supposed to just break loose and it's supposed to turn. So let's give it a little bit of a twist here, see if it's gonna go or not. And by the way, you can twist it by the flywheel also. So yeah, it looks like I need to clean it up a bit, and hopefully we can get this thing turning. So I tried to turn this thing and I ended up breaking pretty much the whole thing. Yeah, so if you want to try this thing, it seems like it's a pretty good model. Now, if I was going to print this again, I would scale it to about 150% just to kind of understand where everything connects and how it has to break loose, because it's all so tiny. You can see my finger and all the parts. It's pretty a complicated machine here. It is an engine with pistons in it. So yeah, if you wanted a little challenge, you can print this and see if you're a little more successful than I am. So this doesn't really, work against this printer. As you saw, the print quality is excellent on this thing. But in any case, I'm gonna go ahead and print a few other models and we'll take a closer look at that. Alright guys, and these are all the models that I printed. So first things first is I want to mention how impressed I am with the print quality of this printer. Now I had a feeling it was going to be good, but this printer ended up exceeding my expectation in the overall feel and what you get for your money. And we'll start with the animals. So here we have a tree frog is what it's called. And I love printing this guy because a lot of printers can't print him right for some reason because of the more finer details here around his arms and stuff. Usually that part turns out okay, but also this pretty sharp angle here doesn't get done right either. But as you guys can see on this printer, everything looks beautiful. And all the layers sit so nice from just straight out of the box. And that stitching here on the top. And by the way, all the prints you saw and see are all in 0.6 millimeter layer height with 15 millimeters a second for the speed. Very impressive with this one. So let's look at a pig here. So this is supposed to be like a piggy bank. I just scaled it really down to a smaller size, and it does have a hole here on the bottom where the plug goes in. And the reason you see stringy here is because there's a little lip here and I just didn't add supports. But you guys can see what the bottom looks like. And look at those layers. Just beautiful. Looking at the face here, we can see there's a lot of detail and nothing weird. So even between his ears, the retraction was very good and there was no issues. And look how shiny those ears are. So overall, an excellent print, again, from this printer. So I like to print this bearing here, and the reason why is because it shows us how well the accuracy is on a printer, and not all printers can print it where it will turn after it's done. And not to my surprise, this printer did excellent. I literally took it off the bed and it just spun perfectly right after that. I mean, there was like no issues whatsoever. I didn't even have to break it loose. That was the interesting part. It was smooth right off the bat, which is highly impressive and shows me that this printer is very accurate right out of the box. And so I didn't get a chance to print too much, but I had to print my two favorite prints, which is the astronaut and the spaceship. So let's take a look at the astronaut, and he is just beautiful. Now I printed him much smaller than I usually do, and the reason I did this is I really wanted to see if this printer is capable of producing really nice prints even when they're small. And this thing just blew me out of the water when it finished. I was just like, wow, I haven't seen a print this good in a long time, and especially in this small scale. And this is all the grip that the bed had, and it gripped no problem. So I haven't had any issue with the print sticking to the bed. And you guys can see the cooling is excellent on this printer, because even here under his arms where it's usually not very good, in this miniature model it still turned out great. And the reflections off of the print where the logo is here is usually where you can see things that are not so great, but man, this printer just did amazing. And this helmet, so very happy with what this thing is producing. So I have to say, this is probably going to be my new favorite printer, and it's not just because of prints, it's also the UI. The UI on this printer is just awesome, and they really have nailed it down to having high quality at a reasonable price, and it really shows in the prints. So I'm gonna go ahead and clear this build plate. And the reason for that is because I haven't removed the spaceship here from the platform. And this platform here is just on another level. It's a piece of steel, ultra thin, but whatever coating is on here, it works amazingly well, because I'm literally just barely moving it and it's already popped off. I mean, it literally just pops off. It's so good at what it does. I think it might be even better than Ultra Base. And you guys can see how we have a perfect gap, so we're not too low or too high, and it just peels right off. So I've been using the finer side. There's a more coarser side, and I have a feeling this might even work better. But in any case, it does have both sides. Maybe they're supposed to be the same, but they don't look like it. But yeah, just a great feature here with this bed, and it lays down pretty much anywhere you want it, since it is just a piece of steel sheet. But let's go ahead and look at the spaceship. So this is 270 millimeters tall. So this is as tall as it goes. And it is printed in spiralized mode. So there's one layer all the way around after the bottom prints a few layers. But we can see how the bottom looks beautiful. And our layers are sitting really nice. Now on this print, you can really see the vibrations kind of on the reflection here. So they're very, very minor, but they are there. But it's really low. And you can kind of see here a little better. It's usually where we see the most vibration in these areas here. So the little bit of discoloration you see, that's just this cheap filament. Even though it's a shiny filament, it's still a budget one, so it's not very consistent. But yeah, overall very nice. And this part here on the top is just amazing. So the accuracy on this thing is great. And here we get to the top part where most printers fail, believe it or not. And a lot of it has to do with cooling and, you know, the way it puts down the layers. But this is just a single layer going up. And so the thinner it gets, usually they start melting around this area, most of them. But this one actually made it all the way to the top and had a little tiny melt right before the ball, but not on the ball, and the ball is perfect. I don't think I've ever seen the ball this nice. So that's very impressive. So to summarize this printer, I'm highly impressed, and I feel like if they keep refining this thing, you know, maybe even changing this color, I'm not hating on it, just don't think it's the ideal color, but you know, it does stand out, and maybe that was the intent. But if they came out with a pro version of this thing, I think that would just be killer with, you know, a little bit more refining around the edges. So there's a lot of positives to this printer. Pretty much everything is good. The UI is good. The silent steppers are excellent. The build quality is all great, except for maybe on the hot end would like to see injected molded parts, but that's nitpicking. The build plate is amazing. The parts cooling on the hot end is also great. Filament detector with all metal extruder, using more modern USB Type-C cables. Lots and lots of options in the menu system to control the printer. Also love the placement of the SD card here on the side on the front. This rotary knob is really cool, and it does glow. You can turn it on and off. We do have adjustable Y-axes, but not the X. Also, this printer has more party tricks. If you just hold this down, you can change between the Biqu software or the Marlin. So if we click on Marlin, it's going to load up in that. And you guys can see we're controlling this thing as an old school type machine that we all know and love. So this thing is definitely orientated towards the enthusiast. Someone that maybe has a little bit of experience with printers and knows what to expect. And in that regard, this thing does not disappoint whatsoever. Now, if you're new to 3D printing, you might be a little bit overwhelmed with how everything is and how much stuff is going on, and you know how many features are just in the software and things like that. But you'll surely realize that you've got a lot of bang for your buck when you actually use it and see all the features and how it prints. So I really have to give this thing a huge thumbs up. And if you're looking for a new printer, at this point I would highly recommend this thing. If you're considering the Ender 3 version 2 or even the Pro, check this thing out. This definitely will destroy the Pro, and the version 2 seems to, you know, have to have a lot of bugs worked out of it first before it could be perfect. But this thing will compete with those printers and actually beat them in print quality, at least what I can tell initially. So sometimes in the future I'm going to compare this printer to the CR6 SE, which produced the best print quality that I've seen in a while. So we're going to compare those two machines, and this one is obviously much cheaper than that, or at least at the moment, and we'll see where it goes from here. So this is a little bit of a long video, but I was pretty excited about this thing and really enjoyed using it. And you guys know I go through a lot of printers. It's not always that I get too excited about a printer, and this one definitely got me excited. And I was thrown off from the color scheme in the beginning, but I've come to like this printer a lot and even maybe love it. So if you made it to the end, I really appreciate you watching. And if you did enjoy the video, then hit that like button. If you want to pick this thing up, I'm going to have some links in the description, so check that out. And also, if you enjoyed 3D printing videos, I got a lot more stuff to come, and as a matter of fact, quite unique printers coming up, so stay tuned for that. And also check out my pretty large library of the printers that I have reviewed. You might find something interesting there. All right, well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.